Howdy. Now my look, now my best days have been, excuse me. Now my best days may be long gone, and my look peaks, but still grow strong. And there was another one I wanted because I was thinking, wow, the whole process of taking people, entertainment. Each of the sciences share an identity with their apparent out to. Is right there the identity that answers all things. Boxing. Little Rap Guy and Friends are counter obfuscated cartoons and naturally obfuscated, as all things have been, naturally, but also naturally only as criminal insidiousness, and where and how that is being and has been employed before all other formal uses of all words, like employment. It is relevant to answering questions properly. For example, how would be motivated to obfuscate what had already been revealed to humanity. Nature is demonstrating all kinds of way proofs. See, with hyper evidential, how we are each an individual, a group, difference, slash S, areas, ages, sexes, sequence, or simultaneous nature, slash or simultaneous nature. No, I self promote boxing. Republic needs all names returned, all things. The ancients would discern the identity of the campus Marcius slash Marcius, spelled also with a C. And for example, the reverse simultaneous slash sequence nature, or sequence slash simultaneous nature. This is more probable and is more practical, where answers have failed. Simultaneously, no, where they replaced the proper and worse, differentially too, with the real answer. How the slash S relevant relative to having black pupils, whites of eyes. The second we hear readings of law, therefore of nature, leaving out the smallest finite detail, simultaneous values. A little kid who is going through or came through the worst school or the best school with the best teachers. And that's it. We're going to be led by the hyper invisible, so we can't discern that. And we don't decide things and then without leaving out a contemplation. That is also coupled with a prayer, the value of a prayer, not as the way people spoke about prayer. Scientific is the smallest finite detail being left out. Our simultaneous details are being left out. Is that being explained? Is where something being missed? In other words, our contemplation as a human species, as a living species, distinctly from the rest. We could be systems other than its own that is positive, where it makes evolution, fruits, gifts, means everywhere, paradise. Otherwise, it demonstrates negative value nature progressions, actions, dangers caused by us. These of Hadith is more practically having been demonstrated and demonstrated, increasingly demonstrably having been defined by the ancients. And by nature's demonstration of the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts in nature. Even acts like extinction. See, these are loss of details that were a part with this conversation that there is also loss of. and that makes it harder to discern. But while it's getting easier to discern, because wherever there is what is dialectical, there is more than what is axiomic. There is a hyper simultaneous identity of hyper simultaneous. It is teaching us how the species bodies are being communicated to by nature and that answers our questions. So even the little birds have male, female. And see, when they have topics, treatments, and subjects, everyone, since some ancient times, leaving out the simultaneous, which one of the ways, that's why there is the value of discerning, the increasing value of two of the hyper invisible but still discernible. You're not supposed to call only the courts, only the police are supposed to call things allegations. They're only obligated to call it that. Everyone else was obligated, like the news was obligated to call it exactly what the people tell it to call it. Oh, but they don't have problems with people online. Oh, they have all sides of criminal and civil cases. And then again, through time, with the military families on off the spots next to the Connecticut State Capitol, roles with UConn, for example, with psychiatry, doctors, lawyers, the greatest campuses. Every campus, even private and public ones, the difference of that. Don't forget, this is a method that employed how nature is speaking about and teaching us about difference. It employed other answers there. It employed other answers for what caused slavery. That was already entrenched before our founding parents were even born, before their parents were even born. The suburbs were designed. Control your mind, but free your heart. See, but you don't know how to do that because it's employed from some ancient times. Certain type of victim slash hyper victim, formally, informally, and private with that. And the difference with that, all exceptions. Everyone sensing and hurting for each other. Roles with for other reasons. But there was also undiscerned. A breaching method, uses of that got the countries to self-value uses of their names, even if defenses of themselves legitimately. Uses of names of individuals, grouped difference, ground voicing, slash S of the human species body value. Humanity's voice has been faked since some ancient times with evidence, hyper evidence. The existence of a distinct identity of simultaneous nature. There's also non-distinctly each thing. We are, those are some of the differences. Where and how it is distinctly, non-distinctly, and is hyper simultaneously itself. This is how we are additional, it is making more of itself. Hyper additional nature is what the ancient pantheism, which is what we can deal with as a group. So it's about hyper pantheism. So we have this means instantly, and we can couple it with we can stack on it. Means tactical ulterior. From these tactical ulterior self-value, not used remotely for worse, that was never in the perception of the countries individually grouped and together and their forms prior to this. Not even before semi-ancient. And then the messengers of modern religions became manifest in semi-ancient times, latter semi-ancient times, demonstrably communicating something about this. If you take it right, it's about their criminally foreign influence uses of the sciences, uses of nature's answers, but they're pretending other. People speaking for the law, people speaking for nature and positive and negative as criminal insidiousness nature. Now we're dealing with predicate acts. We're dealing with predicate value. They have roles with experts of each science and with locations, with types of countering bodies, the types of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, including reports on them, real even when made up, per employments, also of motivations, where how also the answers require how people stayed motivated to rules with the left breaching method, and while they pretended other, because that's what the breaching method forced. Even if witch trials were made up, they were about the same thing, and regardless who made them up, or if there's mix, and everyone was forced at locations to be psychopaths, which don't look at it as a name calling, because they were preventing people from being calm where they should be calm, and or where they shouldn't, if they, in other words, and what they're preventing people from have aggression where they shouldn't. And simultaneously, increasingly, everyone's measuring and maintaining positive and negative treatments, identity, name treatment, time treatments, pretending integrity, when it's all only styles of logic and as nature that can't help but afford finite details being and having been made up. Relative to also to exploitations of everyone through everyone. Perfected, not just for what it would cause, and exploitations of everyone through that further, but it knew right back to all locations slash S. Nature would continually, increasingly be demonstrated the scientific value of a human fact-checking nature breaching method, relevant to all natures and styles of logic, as identities of the sciences, and or as people using that syntax, those positive, negative names treatments, including how additionally we are the voicing as the ground, well, not as the ground, but as it anyway, because of that identity. Even if we are the minimalist part of its body, the identity of all space slash existence, its complete identity of relationship to itself, that is relativity to positive and negative simultaneously, and further making more of itself. It is making more of it. Here, where Earth has a concentrated value, that's one of the differences it showed us to answer questions about Earth's difference and if there is life in outer space, intelligent life, equivalent to our own. Lethal IDs is forced space nature transfer, where everything and every part of each thing can't help but be its nature. But there is a difference between positive that is positive as criminal insidiousness nature and or not. What is hyper-evidential shows that already defenses of their identities, and further as titles, as all identities of law. Certain type of victim slash hyper victim that can no longer afford what is proper to have discerned, what is capable of being discerned at each age of fact human nature. simultaneously, preemptively for a bunch of reasons, connected. Three ways, simultaneously. So, what Jim Crow laws were about, and what slavery was about. We were told not to leave out how our founders had to quickly counter extort the other founders who had to stay roles north and south with slavery. The Institute of Living was founded on the campus of Hartford Hospital in 1822. They're involved with the intelligence community too, with mental health places, the phenomenon of criminally foreign influence uses of anomaly with databases, illusion stacking since before computers. Is a criminally foreign influence re-engineering of the republic for which we stand. Group. And as an individual, as the species volume science, trying to stay positive unto itself. If people want to shrink or stay apart from the legion and its awareness that we cannot be without exception nature. See, we're in a semi-ancient trap. The real causes of negative value nature progression acts and natures have long been blamed on other things, others, or ourselves, and that defended. As people used remotely, increasingly incapable of affording discern all that conjunctive too, the order of the finite, and or the smallest finite details where and how the value of that left out is significant, and or the means to show simultaneously. People should not have to debate with psychopaths as the identities of the law, including as lawyers. They want to have summaries of things. Oh, can you explain a summary of things? Because they're involved with planting evidences, even preemptively, actively grouped reasons, and increasingly used remotely criminally foreign influence, certain type of victim slash hyper victim predator, hyper predator. And they have to lie about their motivations. And they need this with every age of fact shooting nature. Overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and the criminal insidiousness natures of the branches individually grouped and together, predicate acts, methods, roles, needs, and natures, certain type of child abuse, victim predator, hyper predator. They assign that everything is an identity of value slash value progression as an only incapable of increasing identity of value, where value is nature slash nature as value, and the opposite sequence nature simultaneously, where and how it is identity's course, where and how it demonstrates simultaneously where all the parts of our body have a semi-nature relation to our complete identity. Not only do all the identities together as the species body, any group that's formed, any couple, its identity relationship to itself and the value of that are three equivalencies, gaining as value with three distinct identities of zero, relative to where, to how things can be positive or negative. It's going to only stay positive unto itself. Increasingly, it's already an extent of the five connected extents of identity. Identity is really relativity to positive and negative, and to the value slash value progression as itself, hyper additionally only increasing. This is what English was revealed to teach, only to an extent. I mean, even if only to an extent, it is discernible that this one shared identity, this one identity of simultaneous nature that the species share, demonstration of itself, hyper invisible but still discernible to an extent. Because, well, English was revealed to teach this with others ancient sciences, also valuing their difference, because that's how you could discern its difference. It's hyper different, in other words. But this was converted because a hyper archetypal criminal enterprise, if you will not, a hyper, I mean, human fact keeping nature breaching method, human fact keeping nature torture slash slavery. Before it was a torture slash slavery, slash extortion slash slavery method. It was a method slash S, and then the plural parts blaming other things other than themselves what the individual method caused. If forced, tripped, hurt, or persuaded the names of the species body consciously to have to counter things like criminal insidiousness as fact human nature, to have to counter things like criminal enterprises, grouped roles with criminal foreign influences, and criminal insidiousness nature, and where we are fact human nature. It knew that modern countries, the suits and ties, the counters to them, and exceptions to that, and the differences, like with physical things, with, with identity things, with names. Everything is this is the hyper. This is how computers could discern and appreciate value, the value slash value progression. This is they have to mimic its identity of relation to itself and the value of that. So preemptively, they are being shown, for example, each of the sciences experts, where how they could be motivated to pretend that integrity of science is spoke. For example, we know if you're honest and don't leave out the smallest detail, before our founders were born, the suburbs were designed tactically to nature, with a human fact-keeping nature, torture slash extortion, such enslavement system, northern colonies and southern colonies, entrenched through countries themselves, individually grouped them together, identities of fact-keeping nature, and of motivations, narratives, leaving out the breaching method, leaving out the nature, let alone the syntax that can speak properly for logic, for good or bad, truth or lies, let alone criminal. Criminal! Yeah, yeah, Legion. Black pupils, peer! See the whites of eyes. Don't shoot. To clear. We're in some ancient trap. So we have not one to blame. But who cannot blame the semi? In other words, the whole species agrees things. We know the species are going extinct because of us. The suburbs were designed from here to Russia to Ukraine before our founders were born by the torture, slavery method, extortions method, a whole bunch of different motivations additional to its own screening uses of that same use of location slash S. Same way the computers work. But more ways too. Computers can't be that to mimic it. See, they can't be the value only increasing of what came true before all that they made up. See, regardless if everyone believes in it. Native Americans had this sustained against the see president slash chief and see chief slash president. and see that differentially where the subjects do individually grouped together, and their apparent difference. That is manifest a part of the method. It shows us where there is no difference between them. See, but we have not had one class on each subject unabridged since semi-ancient times. And before that, and during that, from off all locations, there are other names and influences and motivations present, with the only capable of being apparent or discerned motivations for people for where and how it is relative where they're being used as criminal insidiousness nature of positive treatments, negative treatments, identity treatments, timing treatments, instances, roles, recorded and or not. There are means to show things hyper-recorded. Bakshingata! So the military has roles with women. I also don't know the names of. After the World Trade Center attack, there were people I noticed had been associated in the past with all sides of criminal and of civil cases, and with the victims, and with the victims' advocates, and with names in the hallways of the courts. Criminally foreign influence, federal evidence crimes roles, illusions planting roles, falsified police reports roles, criminally foreign influence uses of the names of the investigators, the names of the motivations narrative, with the motivations narrative of the investigations investigators, even when correctly too. Differentially, that in the foreign involvements is worse, because then there's also use of that remotely. It's how the people, they go to war and keep bombs being pointed at each other and pretend they can speak for defense. They prop people up to demonstrate how, they have roles pretending the interbranch, retired, and standing, have roles with the news directing them to pretend things are allegations when they're not supposed to pretend that. And they know they've been attaching people to fake words while the intelligence community with the foreign influences since they were kids have been pretending they're with them. So at least, thank God, a whole bunch of countries at once are guilty together through time. Then in the World Trade Center attack in Manhattan, as people also recorded having been involved with intercities, planting identity theft, frauds, slanders instances, and sequence shifts, illusions, and fake motivations with the foreign. This is also relevant relative to them shutting down presidents and or making them speak against um, leaking and defending that. Certain type of, I don't know what this has stayed, don't know how to explain. And they blamed on our founders right through our schools. And they pretend it's for research. They're using the motivations narratives of people pretending differences that they have to speak passions and emotions about and against someone's names, relative to where to how the courts and the police forms and the political bodies, overt criminal enterprises and private ones. They're reliant upon phenomenon manifest with fact treatment nature and with the value progression where we're going to walk, we're going to be. So also women with the military have roles with the spots next to the Connecticut State Capitol, with people with the World Trade Center attack in the Ninth Circuit Court next to it from other locations. Well, one girl, I don't know her name. I don't know. I'm not sure the guy's name, but he's one of the ones as the victims. He's involved with a subject material people with former director of the FBI, a whole bunch of people associated with him, with spots next to Central Connecticut State University, planting evidences at locations with judges and their family members, prosecutors and their family members, people leading up to the World Trade Center attack involved with post-dating document sequence shifts next to the Ninth Circuit Court, and with them in the Ninth Circuit Court. That proven led up to the 2006 District Court case. Right before the World Trade Center attack, in the court next to it, a panel of judges have been shown legal papers post-dated from inside that. Then that was discovered, and then that proven then finally led up to a 2006 part of a district court case. And still no one knew about that because there was more tied to it. These are also people that were involved with the investigations, investigators of the World Trade Center attack with Hartford Hospital and with the intelligence community roles with names next to hospitals like Hartford Hospital that are also involved with mayors through time and their families and intimate ties, repeating things, and then they got asked about it and they put fake things. AC Walker, AC. So leading up to the World Trade Center attack, and in that context, people next to the state capitol have roles with the O'Brien family and with the Cololo family with wire crimes, whether failed police when they were kids and now as adults. It's also with courts, judges, and prosecutors and their family members, and state police and people from writing forensics, and people who are involved with all sides of the witness protection program. And on off Trinity College recorded there's a Joshua Stryker involved also on off the principal child abusers campus with a Joshua Julian. I caught for them first. They hid that by making falsified police reports against me and using that also with the news at the same time, attached me and little kids, not little kids and me in the same place. No, but they did do that with the principal child abuser. They attach little kids to fake ties to doctors. They attach me to fake ties to doctors with the news too. And with fake conversations with themselves, the news. Fake locations, they put me with the news. And to force the principal child abuser, which was found off campus anyway. Connecticut Interbranch switches names with that. And even when they're honest about their motivations, apparently, they're dishonest with it. They're lying about what brought it up. They have roles with it because Police Chief Cintron and a whole bunch of people like a John Malum and with various branches of the military involved with planting evidences through time, all along Route 1 and sequence shifts. I had nothing to do with John Malum. They tried to make fake exception. One time he brought up one of those movies, those mobster movies, a line with it, whatever, and that was prompted. When I first walked into Wethersfield High School, there were people with the name Mark C.M. Faglione, with a Rick C.M. Faglione, who had been attaching me to fake locations with themselves, and with a Paul Zano, with my neighbors. And they did so with police forms, but with campuses, other campuses I went to, and teachers behind my back. I went even in classrooms with Paul Zano and Ray Clo in grammar school. And they're with people with the name Casper, also with the intelligence community and military, and next to the state capitol through time, FBI, his lawyer, his co-defendants, Thaddeus Grabowski, next to Fox Connecticut News, the buildings next to them, a whole bunch of people involved with the child abusers, and the narratives where the news are attaching me and others to fake locations and conversations with themselves, juxtaposing roles with distinct natures of organized crime and identities of counters to negative value progressions in furtherance of them. And then of course, we have to use their names. They're lying about what came first. They're using all kinds of database roles, even the systems, and how they will go to arrest people. But these are bad things. Each year they have predicate acts with facts rolls at locations interbranch against me and others, reported, confessed, demonstrated for the affected confessions. The FBI and other Wethersfield interbranch have been using West Hartford campuses and locations next to them, parks and religious things and narratives between, you know, marriages with close to the guy with the West Hartford locations. And I never saw Joseph Dennis there. A whole bunch of people tied to a Joseph Dennis with New Britain, with the former director of the FBI and mayors, involved with medical racketeering, worse than war crimes, identity theft, fraud, slander rules, predicate acts with facts, that which is what simultaneously, non-distinctly, and distinctly, what they are about simultaneously, Jim Crow's and slavery. They're inseparable. Slavery made and hold them inseparable. So we observe what makes that held inseparable, and we see a breaching method there. And we see how come not everyone doesn't see it. Because we see also replace other things, others ourselves, blamed for the human fact, human nature, breaching method. In other words, if someone wants to pretend that they're honest and they believe that science is behind and freedom is behind the ground below the feet of the people of New York City, of the suburbs, let alone of New York City, cities throughout the world, that person is going to have inherent active and progressive to their logic, but also simultaneously increasingly can't afford all the revelations that come from appreciating contemplatively as a science of it, like as a prayer, as an individual can only defend, searching for the finite and application by that. Not just by the species body, not just by the identity the other species share, its identity in relationship to itself, and the only increasing value of that. They're hyper additionally the cause to only increasing value of three identities of zero, whether they go positive or negative. So if the legion and the legion, its tribes, and of its exception nature, body together, has one body leave or want to leave, that's value, positive to anyone who can discern that. And there's something they're missing. Because this way, more probably and more practically, relative to what revealed the republic for which we stand, America, the Legion never moved without tribes and exceptions to account for and consciously to appreciate whatever they came across as any species body and their difference. If they don't agree positive, nature's showing us its identity there. And so we want them to, in other words. And so this is hyper programming and beyond hyper intelligence. As it can be properly, in other words, is that could be defended as a group. Only an individual can defend the finite. So please, MSNBC, Rachel Maddow, candidates have the right to lie about themselves. And they can direct you to not say things like that, about that. Or you can refer to things as allegations. But there are only three branches of government, and the difference where there are exceptions associated with their information and use of it, where it is predatory and has been. This is also evidential. How they got away with that is also evidential. In other words, through time pretending that that anything other than a psychopath said that any science, let alone them grouped or together, that they were that had been good or positive, any way other than as a criminal insidious in its nature. This values all kinds of other things others ourselves blame for where and how the campuses have failed the people of New York City. H. So we must teach boxing. Species body longs to shadow box. I teach us things, some rest, some dance. I tell the best. Boxing. See, we have been fit to employments other than those. Nature communicates it wants and needs us to agree that we all agree. We want to share. Open will take away the business of the you know, the Paradise Cafe, or not cafe. But in other words, when people are going to travel. Travel what? This nature, the species going extinct. It's disgusting. Every year, the water is big. The rest of the species, the rest of Earth has no criminal foreign influences. Of course, the top of the water will stay. Beautiful. To see through this, in other words, this physics, we use that not apart from, not without. We do one that which is about the simultaneous, the hyper simultaneous. So we use the simultaneous. So computers use lists, but for less reasons. And for self-value, self-defended, logic in nature, uses that can't afford the short words, let alone their protraction, their value, proper. They come with revelations. What is not separately? What is slavery inseparable from what? The question of what Jim Crow laws are about. What are the lawyers leaving out with the breaching method? What is that about simultaneously too? We don't leave out the smallest finite detail. And we don't leave out that breaching method against the Native Americans and our founders who had to counter extort the other founders. Understanding that phase too. Oh! Boxing. I teach us things. Mandated laws offensively forbid. On value slid. Earth is a concentrated value/value progression. Again, the rest of Earth with no criminal foreign influences. It is a value/value progression here. So the top of the zenith, enforces evolution here, back and towards A. We're up from bottom up and through the filter, the middle of the capital A. This is to teach the science of sharing the identity that teaches about logic. The identity, there is no theory. It is 5 distinct identities of simultaneous, of itself, of its hyper-simultaneous, identity of hyper-simultaneous nature. That which is the reason that distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, and then further hyper-simultaneously, the species are manifest. I tell best, boxing. This boxing, martial arts, and wrestling. They share an identity that forges, that it demonstrates itself. How everything has its identity attached to it, even things made up. It has its identity also attached to each part in finite, smallest part, grouped and together, where it keeps that inseparable from even the smallest detail. And so on the website of Yale University, I saw a picture of Jesus Christ with a capital A on the left side of his head and with a capital W on the right side. And I saw other versions of that. And I know intuitively other ways too, because nature, I read nature. Read what is true always. Though not nature as criminal insidious is. Nature that uses the revelations that does not leave out the smallest finite detail. With the mind convicts, that'll put you in another way. It's taught you reason wrong. Boxing is strong. Faith branches burn, and there is seed. So I'll proceed. Here, legion, here and there. Long lost, and stone. Dropped in there. Campus 2 in each. So one must teach. Boxing, martial arts, and wrestling are fought, but by the rules. What do you think?